One man's trash is another man's treasure. This shouldn't be the case for film and television. After all, it's a difficult medium, requiring a large crew and a lot of time, patience, and money. And yet, a lot of productions are just needlessly thrown out. Some of these could be due to events outside of the creator's control, like the bombings in Japan that destroyed the Japanese King Kong movies, Japan's first ever monster movies. Sometimes it was due to an obscure airing that many people missed, like Crybaby Lane was for many years. And sometimes it's due to sheer incompetence, like the BBC going, you know what? Let's tape over all those early episodes of Doctor Who. We need to make room for the black and white minstrel show. Yes, that is real. It lasted 20 years. Studios didn't really take media preservation seriously until much later on, when they realized they could make money off of reruns, re-releases, remasters, Regis Philbins. But that doesn't mean everything could be so lucky. Disney wouldn't release their shows on DVD even if you threatened them. But finding a DVD release of Ballistic X vs. Ever? Gotcha, homeboy. And it always makes me happy when pieces of film, television, or video games are rediscovered. Doesn't matter if it's something groundbreaking or just a weird alternate version of a show. There's always room for discovery. It's like a treasure hunt. And recently, I boarded my mighty vessel to find a film I had known about for years, but knew little about. An obscure Korean movie called Empress Chung. I remember briefly seeing the film on a list of Korean animated films back in the day, and I didn't really investigate further back then. But years later, I did a deep dive into this movie, starting with research on where the movie came from, to the production, to trying to find a copy. And today, I want to talk to you all about my quest to find this movie, and the various ups and downs and turnarounds I've had on my quest for Empress Chung. Before I talk about the movie itself, I'll quickly explain Empress Chung's origins because honestly it's the aspect I did the least amount of research on. Sorry to all the Sim Chung fans out there. It's a classic Korean folktale about a farm girl named Sim Chung who sacrifices her life to save her father from blindness and for her kindness and virtue is reborn as a queen. Pretty simple tale, but one that's been retold plenty of times in stage plays, comics, and plenty of films. The subject of today's video was released in 2005, the first feature-length animated adaptation of the tale. The film was the dream project of Nelson Shin, who those interested in animation might have heard of, given he has an extremely large repertoire, including the lightsaber effects in the original Star Wars, directing the first Transformers movie in '86, founding his own studio ACOM in the '80s, and working on practically every animated show that came out in the '80s and '90s. He's a pretty big deal in his home country, even having an animation history museum dedicated to it. Mr. Shin worked on the project over the course of 7 years and was going to be South Korea's big breakthrough on the world stage for animation. However, this was a big project, and ACOM alone couldn't finish it. So in came another studio to assist in the film, Sex Studio, also known as Korean April 26th Animation, the main animation studio of North Korea. Why? How? Well, in the 1990s, the North Korean government were in complete and utter shambles, thanks to a mix of their dictator of 30 years, Kim Il-sung's death, the collapse of the Soviet Union resulting in a collapse of funding, and a horrifying famine that the country still has yet to recover from. Meanwhile, South Korea, after struggling for decades, including through some dictatorships of their own, managed to become a huge economic powerhouse in the 1990s. Under President Kim Dae-jung, South Korea implemented the Sunshine Policy, a large-scale effort to reconcile with the DPRK and hopefully lead to proper peace. There were numerous efforts during these times, but one noteworthy aspect during all of this was in the animation world, Sex Studios started to collaborate with a number of Korean and even a few Western animation studios during this time, such as France's Bellwether Bunnies, which is notably the production that Guy Delisle recounted in his graphic novel Pyongyang, where he had an absolutely wonderful time, absolutely perfect. So yeah, Sex Studio have a bit of a reputation. Like I said, a lot of French companies started outsourcing to North Korea at this time with quite poor results. The original titles being infamously poor, such as Squirrel and Hedgehog. But Nelson Shin, being born in Pyongyang himself and always dreaming of a unified Korea, saw a golden opportunity to produce the ultimate animated film of Korea, bringing together the two nations, produced over the course of 70 years. The film finally saw release on August 12th, where it was not a success. The film will only open in 51 theaters in South Korea and only 6 in the North, earning an astonishingly poor $140,000 in total. And critics were pretty polarized, some appreciating Nelson's scope and vision, and others criticizing it being essentially a Diet Disney animated musical just with a Korean folktale. And the Diet Disney craze was long overdone by the 90s. By 2005, we were all about the Shrek ripoffs. And not too long afterwards, the Sunshine Policy that got the film going in the first place would end up collapsing 1 year later after North Korea performed their first nuclear test, supposedly. And not too long after, the United Nations Security Council passed Resolution 1718, which prompted extreme sanctions against the DPRK. One of those nations that passed it was China, by the way, so that goes to show you how much this screwed up relation. Entertainment companies started to cut ties with SEC. There have been the occasional exceptions, such as South Korean studios secretly outsourcing work to the North. There has been the occasional North Korean co-production, but it either was a one-off case made under special exceptions, or a documentary that was supposed to be propaganda, but ended up being a very disturbing look at how children are raised in the country that makes Jesus Camp look like Cub Scouts. And Empress Chung hasn't been seen on home video since its initial release, and has only been seen in a few film festivals and university screenings, such as the University of Michigan and reportedly the University of Eastern Illinois. Due to tensions between the North and South, which have gotten even worse since the film originally came out, there has been no sign of the film anywhere since, and the original distributors, KOAA, no longer exist. The film did pop up again in the news in 2021, only as a brief scandal regarding the then First Lady of South Korea taking credit for the film, which ACOM were pretty confused about. And to this day, no copy has seen the public eye, which got me all the more confused, angry, and curious. You'll see why later. But now let's cut to the actual search. Brace yourself. I started by emailing the film's director, Nelson Shin, to see if he had any information on the film, where, while grateful for my email, he essentially said the film was a sensitive matter and can't release or comment on it. Then I contacted every film festival the movie was ever shown at, but the only response I got that was of any substance was from the CSAF, the Chinese International Cartoon and Animation Festival. But they changed management at some point and disposed of a lot of their screener videos pre-2017. I also emailed the two universities the movie was screened at, Eastern Illinois and the University of Michigan, and I still have no reply. I also tried to see if the movie ever replayed on North Korean TV, but the website I found only does replays from KCTV, and the film would have more likely aired on Mansudae TV, which is dedicated to movies. I'm still looking through the archives though. There are some movies available on the Manbang TV box, which is a North Korean digital streaming box, but after getting in contact with a reviewer of it, they no longer have the box, sadly. Another Manbang was also sold in China, but it's likely under a different name and probably a headache to find in its own right. I'm still going through those archives, but let me tell you, watching state propaganda for each day for one movie is not fun. So it's time to do some intense Googling and even a little bit of Baiduing and Yandexing. I found this Korean article about lost media, which helped provide some idea about the film's appearances. Then I found another article on the website DC Inside, which shows the film has been backed up at various archives and libraries, but there are catches with all of them. The copies held at Gachon University and Uha Women's University are short 22-minute screeners specifically made for universities. I'm guessing they showcase some of the movie's production. The National Library of Seoul only has some children's books made for the movie. In fact, there were plans for all sorts of Empress Chung merchandise if this copyright listing I found is to be believed. The Ministry of Unification might have a copy, but when I called, they said they didn't. But someone else called and confirmed they did, so likely they won't rent it out to a filthy American. I have no idea. There are some posts on DC Inside celebrating the film being found, but no one has seemed to do a little bit of yo-ho, though I imagine committing piracy in a government facility may not be the best idea. I found a post online that suggests the film may have been screened on CCTV6, also known as the China Movie Channel, but I couldn't confirm it. Probably the most infuriating thing though, is that the film was apparently hosted by the Korean Creative Content Agency from about 2017 to 2019. And despite the best efforts of a Redditor, he couldn't get the link to work. And even more frustratingly, the movie was viewed at least 3,500 times, and yet this movie, not available for public viewing for 12 years, nobody thought to boot up some kind of screen capture? Now, given that China and Russia are allies, kinda, of North Korea, and all three countries love them some bootlegging, I have tried to look up any kind of piracy for the movie on Chinese and Russian resources, but to no avail. I did see some links to torrenting sites that no longer exist, and fake links on streaming sites, one of which was this glorious one of Remy. I didn't go much further just because I don't want to get ransomware. I did find a poster of a theatrical release the film had in Japan as well, but this is all I could find on it. I did find the film listed in the Korean Film Archive, and I did get in contact with them after being warned that the movie wouldn't be subtitled and wouldn't be in HD, which, for crying out loud, have you seen the quality of some lost films? They did say I'd need $180 in permission from the copyright owner to get a copy. I have the money, but getting permission, yeah, that's probably not happening. ACOM still owns the rights, and while I did call them for info on the film, I doubt they'd let me obtain the rights. The woman on the end of the ACOM call did provide me with some information on it. The film was apparently only screened in Seoul, and Nelson Shin does not want the film released online. I have heard that he might be still stung by the film bombing, which I can understand, though he still has a little bit of pride for it, given he has elements of the film on display in his museum. However, they do want to show the movie again, and even said that they might be working on a re-release, so fingers crossed. But given all that's happened, I'm not getting my hopes up. But hey, the film's 20th anniversary is around the corner. Well, that was my search. Did I end up finding a copy as of writing the script? No. Do I regret this little treasure hunt though? Not at all, because the thing is, I and several others were able to gather a lot of information on this quest. I mean, compared to the Lost Media Wiki before and after, that's a big difference. A lot of this would not be without the help of people on the Lost Media Wiki Discord, online users in Korean Reddit. I can't thank them enough. They no doubt put in a lot of effort, and hopefully the film will resurface someday, whether on streaming or streaming on the 7 Seas. What about you? Do you have any films you'd like to find one day? Anything you remember watching that you just can't find anymore? Let me know in the comments, and please subscribe.